Carlos Nelson with the Kansas City Business Association, and we have a special guest tonight that's in the same industry that Cascade Media is in. Who do we have here?
We have Elaine Hamilton with Vision 5. I'm a broadcast video producer and editor, and my company is Vision 5. And so Carlos and I have long known each other for a really long time, and I'm so happy to see how much you've done and how you've grown. So congratulations.
Elaine, if there's such thing, when you was a young pup, I don't know whether I ever was like that, but Elaine gave me some guidance on what equipment to buy and how I could do it at a very inexpensive way to get into the video business. Elaine, tell our audience a little bit about your company and what you do and some of your clients that you've served.
I was a broadcast television editor with the ABC affiliate, and after I came out, I left the industry because I felt there was not enough broadcast level production stories, even really paying attention to the African American community, and so I kind of wanted to fill that gap. It's really, to be honest with you, it's still been very hard to do because I had to also work for a living. And so when I left the industry, I started out with the NFL. One of the customers I took out of the business with me was the NFL's Committee of the 101.
What is that about?
The NFL's Committee of the 101 is, at the time, was the second largest awards for the NFL
African American athletes? Or
no, athletes all over the country.
All right.
So I had started working with the producer for the 101. It was
now it's coming back to my head.
It started by Lamar Hunt.
Yeah,
it's still here, and it's still happening in the market.
Let me make myself clear. I'm off the NFL. Been off the NFL since my fraternity brother Kaepernick took the knee. NFL has showed me what they think about African Americans. They continuously show. I don't see no reason for me to be buying NFL apparel or anything else until they get their self together as it relates to respecting the African American athletes and our overall community. Switching gears real quick, that got me onto this economic theme, which you are on the Kansas City Business Association, and you alluded to some things earlier that we're trying to deal with, that there's not enough business coming to the African American community in the different fields that we can be in business. How do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, it's according to what the industry is. I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think how we're culturalized into business from the very beginning. You know, you can do what you do and you can be really, really good at it. But then when running a business is a whole different, I mean, it's like almost like it's another job.
Right.
It's totally another thing you have to learn how to do. So we go to the entities we think are available to teach us, to guide us, and typically one of my huge complaints is the African American business owners are predominantly geared toward the public sector. We're continually marketed to by third-party organizations, NBWB organizations, and it's not that they don't need to exist, but I have a lot of issues with implementation and not nearly enough focus on the private sector and making sure that we're communicating with corporations and
well, it's all this third party stuff. I'd say, sorry for cutting you off, that they focus more on startups and this and that. That instead of doing business,
but we're all startups at the very beginning.
Right, but
we're all startups. We never start with enough money.
That's what I'm.
A big piece of it. We never start with enough money, and the reason that those third-party organizations existed or exist is to help us build up those dollars we need in our businesses to make them grow, to incorporate the marketing and so on and so forth. But they don't function in the fashion that they necessarily need to. I think they really need, it's not that they don't need to be there, because culturally, we just don't have the dollars within
Well, that's what I'm
our
talking
family environments that other businesses, might receive within, their family. The first place that you're told to get money from is family and friends.
They have no money.
Black folks ain't going to get no money from family and friends. Your parents are going to put up their house. You, number one, don't realize how much money you actually do need, because all the wheels on a business have to be running at the same time. That's your marketing, that's your team, that's marketing and sales, your team, your admin, and then plus
And
what
your
you
production.
do.
Yeah.
And what you do.
Yeah.
So it's like the wheels on a car. When all the wheels on a car aren't running at the same time, then you got one wheel running at a time and you're running it. And so we're marketed to by third-party organizations to become involved in MBWBE participation. Again, like I said, because historically our families don't have those dollars or the cultural mindset to give us those dollars to start up a business, then that's where you go, because you really don't know where else to go. But there's not enough focus on me, focusing on my customers' organizations. That's the kind of things I wasn't taught really early on. Focus on who your customer is, what you're going to deliver to them, their organizations, and building those relationships. So we've got these pieces in between that is, in my mind, and I hate to say this, has created an unnatural relationship in the business community. And then one of the things, and then when you're going to focus on the public sector, there's a big push, so you're always bidding, you're always, quoting, and so on and so forth. And often we'll hear this term, well, we're all like crabs in a bucket.
I don't see that.
You know what? Because crabs aren't in a bucket. Crabs aren't born in a bucket. Crabs are put in a bucket. And so you're always competing for a limited amount of dollars and work, as opposed to building real strong business relationships and growing kind of with your customers.
Let me sum this up, and I've said this numerous times. My feeling is that yes, they have these agencies, but they're top heavy on administration. But the goal is to assist African American businesses, minority businesses, but they're top heavy on administration. And so the real bulk of the money that is supposed to come to help businesses are not going to businesses. They're going to administrative costs.
To some degree.
And
because a lot of times they're also grant funded, and which is
right. Well, hold on. I'm just saying, we are on the business show trying to get to our audience how difficult it is for us to be in business as African Americans, and what the stumbling blocks. If you let the media tell you, all these things are available, these grants, these this and that, and that's not so. If you're not putting the correct code words in the grants and really know what they're looking for to the extent to and the limited amount of money that's out there, they throw a piece of cheese out there and you got a million people trying to get it. All right.
Yeah. That's just ridiculous. That's how
it's really
business is really done.
And it's really ridiculous in our community. And our community has been controlled like that, from the political end, the business end, and the religious end. And I think all of that has come about behind lack of communications. Lack of communications with our grassroots people, and that's what this program is designed, where we get involved. And we know who is representing us across the board, whether it's downtown or Jeff City or Washington, D.C., and hold people accountable.
And, the other place where one of the things I was telling you, we're always looking at the leadership, but we also, like you said, you have to look down to the root. And the root also is our vote. I I just will never believe when Al Brooks lost his bid for mayor.
Mm-hmm.
He lost it by less than 1,000 votes because only 30% of the 30% of African Americans who are registered to vote and actually voting, he lost it by less than 1,000 votes because, he only picked up 30% of the 30% of African Americans that.
Well, let me address that from my standpoint. I'm not a politician or anything.
But our vote matters so much more than
right.
we
But
believe
let
it
me
does.
hold it, because when I moved here in '78, we voted in this community, the African American community, and decided elections because our block vote meant we would decide after the majority community finished fighting it out. We would be the decision makers. But things were coming back to our community from our vote. Over the last 3 decades, this is just Carlos Nelson speaking. This is not in my company speaking or anything else. This is Carlos Nelson speaking. I don't think that the people that have been handling our political interests have handled it in a way that it has benefited the community. And so anything else?
We've upsended so much of our power and upsended, like certain organizations that tell us what to vote for, so on and so forth, sold off that vote to the highest bidder or whatever. But so really, and on top of that, I often interview people and I say, okay, are you going to vote for this or that or mayor or whatever? And it's, no, I'm not going to vote because blah, 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 blah. Not understanding how powerful really that vote is and that we have a lot of power, and we're not utilizing it because of all these different philosophies we may or may not have about
But
voting.
that's what this show is. That's what this show is about. That's what our network is about, to get across important issues that we all have interest in.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, I'm only interested primarily in the African American community because we're the ones that really need the most attention. But when the African American community is not doing well, how can Kansas City and the Kansas City leadership, business leadership, say that Kansas City is doing well? If we're not all doing well and eating, how can someone at the table look down and not see that you want a great city? It has to be inclusive.
Yeah, and then and we have to push that with our vote, not just, I hate to say this because there's always this impression that we're all asking for a handout. And one of the things that the 2016 election taught us, and even just this recent shutdown taught us, is just how powerful the people really are. For someone to get into office with less than the popular vote, because so many people didn't vote, that you end up with the worst, probably. I mean, I'm not going to go into my political views, but
it's difficult.
Very, very, difficult situation. So that should prove to Americans that when you really get out and you get involved in that, just that simple component of it, because democracy is one person, one vote, and the most number of people who vote, that person wins. And it just really comes down to
how is that? Let's bring this full circle. That really affects your business.
And that affects Kansas City, because if we're putting our vote if we're putting our numbers would really impact, which direction this city goes. And so if you're a politician and you're trying to run and you're trying to get elected, Carlos, you might even decide to run if you really want to get elected, and that this power base has gone from 30% to 50%, then you're going to be a little bit more concerned about, what comes into this community. And what is dragging this community down more than anything is jobs in the community. When you go east of Truth, you got to take a plane, train, and automobile to get to work. I keep saying, where's our Amazon on East of Truth? There's a lot of space. And that's just an exaggeration. Amazon.
Well, that all has to do with dollars and cents, banking,
and pushing
yes.
and migrating people, corporations to this side of town.
And that's called gentrification right now.
Well, it's gentrification is I live here, but I still go somewhere else, to work. When you want to regrow this community, if you had the level of let's say if you just use an Amazon as an example, if an Amazon facility were on the east side of Kansas City, something that big, some major manufacturer, whether it's 500 people, whether it's a couple of hundred people or whatever, if you had even green energy jobs and green energy economy were building on the east side of Kansas City where you have significant number of jobs, you're going to have restaurants, you're going to have cleaners, you're going to have things that pop up on your side of town, you're going to be looking to renovate housing, you're going to be, the housing values are going to grow.
Well, what would you say about the money that was put down here on Vine over the last 2 decades?
Again, it's always going looking for public sector dollars. They come, you have to fight for it, you got to kill yourself to fight for it, as opposed to it being organic through the corporate environment. There's a lot of money there.
Right, and that let me say this. That's what the Kansas City Business Association show is really about. Reaching out, saying to corporate America, you need to do better by our African American businesses. We have them. We're doing business. Some of your clients, who's some of your clients, large clients?
Right now,
that you've had in general.
I've worked for the Army Corps of Engineers, the Federal Reserve. Some of our pieces, not the two really large pieces, are in the Liberty Memorial World War I Museum. The piece on the ceiling, the piece on the floor, and all the small areas are Vision 5 videos. We did the audio production for the gaming boards. We've worked for a number of years. We worked for Technosonic Studios in St. Louis, and we did all the shows for Missouri Outdoors producers on this half of the state. Right now, we're doing the national videos for AWG, Associated Wholesale Grocers. So the point being that we have professional. We work for City of Kansas City, State of Missouri, for the federal.
Yeah, but the point I'm bringing is that we have black businesses that are professional, that have a track record.
Yeah. And
the contracts are not flowing the way they should, given the environment that everybody's helping minorities and MBEs. And our show is here to highlight our professional members and to grow our audience so that you can see who's who in our organization, and you might have a chance to call on them. How would they get in contact with you, Elaine, if they would like to secure your services?
We're partly we're kind of discriminatory. I'm not to say discriminatory, but we're cautious and sensitive to the customers we take because we can't take everything. We want to service our customers extremely well. But if you're looking for larger business services, it would be vision5.com, www.vision, V-I-S-I-O-N, the number 5.com. Oh, wait a minute. It's FIVE 5. I'm sorry.
Right.
Vision-FIVE5.com.
Hey, tell me this. What kind of projects would you be interested in taking on to let them know if they were interested in your services? What type of services you provide per se?
We're mostly documentary and story producers, so we really look for stories and corporations and organizations who want to communicate either within their organizations, communicate within to their customers. We do look for more corporate customers simply because when it comes to large to small business projects, we did that for a number of years. And regardless if I'm working for $5 or $5,000, I make sure our customers get this, and our clients get the same treatment, that they walk away with a good quality product. And so, but
feel good about their product.
Exactly. Right. And it's because that's really important, because our name is on it. And so over the years, I finally got to this point where for smaller clients whose projects I believe in or really, we just give it away, because it's hard to keep this quality standards up. We talked about that earlier, a lot. Right. It's hard to keep the quality standards up if you can't hire people, if you can't pay them, and you got to be able to pay artists. And saying
that's again to our audience. That's important. Why it's important for you to do business with your community and to look to your community. You have professionals in our community that do anything from roofing to filming to cleaning to groceries. Everything. And economics is the way that you can gain some traction and coming together how you spend your money.
And we're all, a lot of us, we're just as committed to our customers, our clients, and quality of work. And I think that's often missed. And the other piece of it is not being able to market well enough. So I applaud you greatly for creating a platform where people can come and talk about who they are and what they do, because a lot of times it's also the other piece that nobody knows who we are. And again, having those dollars in your business to commit to marketing and advertising. And it's, because that's the last place that we tend to put our money, because it's like, I gotta pay my employees.
Well, Jeremy Webster said it best in our first 219 series, and he talked about how African American businesses have somewhat been restricted to doing business in their own communities, and their communities have the least amount of revenue, and to be successful, you have to have your community as a base, and then be able to do business outside of your community, which brings money back to your base, and that has not worked real well for the African American businesses that I've been associated with.
Because I think a lot of times people just don't, when you talk about broader businesses and corporations, they don't know who we are. And it's just like if you're going to have somebody paint your house, you want to feel comfortable with them. You want to know who they are. You want to have recommendations. And that's where I talk about that unnatural relationship in terms of third-party organizations, because, there's mixers and different things like that. But it doesn't, it's like, networking.
And most of those you got to pay to go to.
And even if you got to pay to go to them, we need to put more dollars into paying to go to stuff, really, because a lot of times that's where our clients are. But it's like making friends. And when you make friends, you have to get to know that friend. You have to hear their philosophies and how they think, and to gain a certain level of trust. And I think there's where some of the break is happening. And once I started figuring out, I'm like, why am I putting my energy over here? I need to be over here hanging out with y'all, talking to you. You get comfortable with me. Hey, give me your phone number. It's just like making friends. And that's where some of those pieces are missing, is a comfort level with large organizations. And then, just as African Americans, there's a tendency to mistrust us. So there's that deeper layer of mistrust. So it really, it's a lot.
It's a vicious circle, but we're taking the first step to try to solve that. For our audience, we'll be unleashing a new campaign called Connecting Kansas City. The Big C campaign be launched next week. As we say on our closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.